Well, hey everybody. Oh, I better adjust my green screen. We need some better illusion there. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Boy, it still doesn't work. Oh, here's what we're gonna do. One day, I'll figure this kind of stuff out. There we go. This will almost work out. Okay. So, what I want to do today is, other than futzing with everything, so tragic. We'll just go with that. Who cares? Uh, well, I spoke at the UK VMUG group a little while ago, and as in last Thursday, so not too long ago, and I went back and earlier this week and I looked and saw what other talks there were, and there was one by one of my colleagues about the app navigator that we have, and then also we in VMware Tanzu Land, we just released this thing called the App Transformer. Both of these are like tools to help you, when you're modernizing your software portfolio. And this is a topic I'm especially interested in nowadays, as you probably know if you're one of the regular viewers around here, because one, it's just something that we work with a lot of customers, and here's a slide that I use a lot. You can see it's my summation of things, but it's a big problem in large organizations. That is, older applications that need to be modernized that have not been. They're really holding back companies from adding new features, doing their software better. The whole let's make our business run better by focusing on being able to develop software more. So, and I'm also working on a book with another one of my colleagues, Mark Zotner. And so let's do something kind of, there's my colleague there. Do something that we do every now and then here. As you know, I don't actually write code. And a lot of what you do in live streaming is just kind of like hang out as you discover things with some nice chill music. So I thought what I would do is I wanted to get a little more knowledgeable about these two things. And, you can join me in figuring it out. And then maybe what I'll do at the end, I'll see what kind of enthusiasm I have for this kind of thing. But maybe I'll try to do one of my little 5 or 10 minute videos, kind of summarizing that stuff, and we'll see how that turns out. That can always be a delight, or a not delight. I think that's sort of the way that life is. It could either be good or bad. But we'll see. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by looking at the. I'm using the YouTube thing to stream now. I ping back and forth between basically using what do you call it? Using Twitch versus going to YouTube directly. And I don't know. Who really knows what works and doesn't work? Well, so first of all, what we should do is I am going to look over the most recent thing, which is there's a blog that we had come out on November 29th. That's yesterday. And it's about the application transformer. So let me open this up. And you and I can read together. Let me hide this video. Let me turn our music back on. So let's read through this and take some notes as we're going, so that I can learn exactly what it is. So we'll get our notes here. There's some links. So first, application transformer. Now, my understanding of this is it's a tool to basically go in and identify, I don't know, maybe some of the low and mid hanging fruit when it comes to stuff you want to modernize, and actually trying to automate as much as possible repackaging that code. And what over here in VMware land, there's this notion of the 5 R's. You can see rehost, replatform, refactor, retain, retire. These are pretty general things that you do with your older application portfolio. You kind of go through and figure out which of those you want to do, and whatever. It's not too worth going into them. It's just all the things you would expect. So we've got this new thing, the application transformer. Let's see what it does. You build, discover, analyze. Well, you got to do that. So discovery. So let's see. There's 3 parts to the initial process. You need to discover what you have, and probably gathering information says, and then it helps discover. Yeah. So not only discover what you have and what's in it with respect to the tech used, configuration, etc. So you need some way of doing that. Let's change this to that. And then you do analysis. Of course, you're going to want to do some analysis, right? My head's going to get in the way here soon, but we'll fix that when we get to it. Technical scores. So let's see. Let's look at this. What's this? Technical scores generated based on the detailed information. Business value. Whoa. With business value, enable customers to make informed decision on which. So, okay. Then let me summarize this. Then we're going to rate technical difficulty to modernize. Let's get this. Let's see. To modernize. I realize, I need to, I'm looking over here, and that means that it looks like I'm looking in the opposite direction, which I kind of sort of am. So let me rearrange this. Let's see what we can do here. It's not exactly like the most awesome way of doing things, but wait a second. Oh yeah, here's my problem. Oh, but then, anyways, one day I'll figure this out. In fact, why don't I? It's going to be a little weird for me, but can I flip this? Is there a filter? This is not really duplicate invert polarity. No, we don't want that. That's a bunch of nonsense. Scaling, aspect ratio, scroll, sharpen. Nope. What we can do is let's go into here. And I think in here, which is my camera setup. Boom. Okay. Now, you see, I'm looking that way. It's a little more natural. Okay. So, transformer. Let's see, technical difficulty to modernize automatically to modernize the code. And then 3, transform. Application transformer for Tanzu creates, and then this is like actually do the work. Automated. So what are we doing here? There's a container image. So basically you can create container images, and it has some built-in things for moving WebLogic and Tomcat. So it creates a Kubernetes ready thing with YAML and all that stuff. Okay. So for supported app stacks, creates container. Is it just one? Probably. Container with Kubernetes config that can be deployed as images to K8s. All right. So this is what the app transformer does. Let me fix this up. So sort of broad range of application types through 200 application signatures. Okay. So I would put this up here in order. So let's see. Supports 200 plus different applications. This is likely inclusive of various versions of those apps. So, not I'm guessing. Let's see where. Let's skip around here a little bit. We'll just go to the resource page. They don't have it enabled to open a new tab, whatever CMS system we're using. So I was going to look at this page next, but let's see. What is the transformer? Yes. Yes. What problems? How does it work? We'll get to this soon. But where are the supported applications? I could have sworn I saw them listed somewhere. Maybe they're not somewhere. I suppose I could go look this up. I wonder where we have that listed. Well, let me see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go off screen here. So this will be very entertaining for you since you can't see it. But I am going to... What I'll do is I'll put this link in this blog in the chat window so that you can go enjoy it. So app transformer blog post. And then I'm going to go look at our internal site and see if there's a link to the supported apps. Where would we have that? I don't know if anyone has solved making intranets good. The one here at VMware, it's not too shabby. It's just always the issue of as always, getting people to be consistent about how they do things and where they put them. So we got a Confluence, we got this other thing, we got that other thing over here. You're always going to have a lot of stuff. So let's see. Technical field enablement. Whoa. What if I just want to know about what the app transformer, we've got lots of stuff we talked about here. Tanzu additions. Those are exciting. OKRs. Probably don't want to look at that publicly. Tanzu object group, Tanzu scenarios, Tanzu, panorama, product, Tanzu development center. All right, so here's what we're going to do. App modernizer. Let me see, we got a Christmas tree coming here. So I'm going to have to pause VMware app transformer field, no. Well, I think I'm going to give up on that. Let me go. I have to go help get this Christmas tree. You can watch me and my kids watch all sorts of wacky Nutella.
This on it, I'm going to lick the knife off. I don't know if it will be good, but let's see. I'm going to eat it right now. It's really good. Bye.
All right, well, since I broke to get that, let me show you this tree. You can also see the studio here. Look at that. Comes in an easy to transport package. You know, I'm used to going to Christmas tree places. Pretty difficult to transport there, but they just deliver it, and then there you got your tree. We can unfurl it, do all sorts of stuff. That's fun stuff. My dog is also super afraid of the tree for some reason. You know, she can be a little timid. So, you know, and who wouldn't be afraid of a giant tree? I know. I would have some, mixed feelings about it. Let's fix this up here. The perils of green screen magic. Okay, that's good enough. So, let me go back to this. Now, what we were trying to find, if you remember, I'm gonna give it one more go here, and I'm gonna look in one more place to see if we maybe have a listing for it. I mean, it did just come. It was just posted yesterday, so that's why it's hard to find the information. Where? No. Let's go over here. Go to Tanzu Land. Fix the microphone here. Let's see if we've got it. Huh? Ah, there we go. There is a page. So let's see. Overview. Is that customer facing though? Internal resources. External. Oh, there's just a blog post. Let's see. Let me open up this PDF. So let's see. We can't really let me just look for my own. That's a pretty good slide deck, but it has a big red thing that says it's for internal use. So I'm not going to show it. Here, well, let's go back. Let's just look at my big head. I'll have to get someone to come on and go over this. But let me see. I just want to see a list of current state. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, so there's not only there's a bunch of off-the-shelf apps that you can go in and match the name for. That's kind of interesting. Anyways, I'll see if I can get, I probably won't actually do this, but we'll see if maybe one day I'll come and get someone to give us some more information on it. Now, the other thing that we can do, let me see if we've posted anything about it on our own site here. So let me open that up so you can follow along. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Tanzu videos page, right? Surely you check it out all the time. Here we go. So you can see me. There's me going. Let's see if there's anything. App catalog, data management, Greenplum. We've got a bunch of off in Asia there. They've done a bunch of whiteboards. There's me from last time. Well, I don't see it listed down there, but that's fine. All right. So we're going to need to find out what those apps are. So let's see. Broad range of, yep, we got that. An agentless tool. So that means it, the Christmas tree is getting upset. That means, it does some remote scanning, which is fine. Huh? Oh, you got some working with there, so you can. So let's make note of this. Using V, realize network insight. It can figure out network topology. End to end. All right. I love a fact-based decision. So I'm reading this. And so this is where the it's going to tell us how it does the technical score. So it looks like not only is it technical, but you can add in your own. So let's see. Where's the scoring? Analysis. People can also add in business value metrics to weight the ordering of apps to transform. I assume that's what these are for. All right. Where's the automated most containerized section? So then you just create the actual stuff. You got to have a holistic view. That's good. Efficient. Yeah. Holistic view. Flexibility. Increase agility and speed to market. Yeah. So let's go over this. So benefits. Kind of a little fun lesson in value propositioning for marketing. So holistic view. Let's see. So it's not only the code, but the network topology. And I would add and business value metrics. So dependencies, network topology, what else? And then flexibility. Sure. You know, it allows, but I don't know. I would leave that one off, but that's fine. Increased agility, and then like it's automated. Saves time, speeds things up, removes some human error. Yep. All right, so now let's look at the resource page. If you wanted to talk to an expert, is that a form to fill out? Yep. That should be the thing that you do if you're interested in this. So here we are. It just kind of takes a lot of what was in the blog post, but you do get a visual. So here, let's see what this is. So we can see a little bit of what that looks like. Let's let's zoom in there. So this is, you can see there's a database in there, some JBoss. So here's some of the things, right? And this is the inventory. And it's telling you some of the, for the app, some of the major configuration things. So that's enjoyable. Let's go back to a regular size. Oh, and then let's look at this analysis tool. So then there's some topology there. And I don't know what a 0HA is, but it looks like, a some kind of trading application, a Java app. And you can see it has down to the, Bitcoin banking. Great. You can kind of see what the network topology is for the various components are. So you can kind of track down all the applications you would need to use. And then let's go and see what the containerize and replatform thing is. Where'd it go? Okay, so then, what does it say here? It kind of looks like so it says ready to containerize. So here I assume you can go in and like do the container. All right, so what is it? Age organization delivering. So yes, you can do that. Now let's look at the next one. What problems does it solve? Lack of visibility, infrastructure, arbitrary. Okay, so this is good stuff for our little spiel, right? So let's go up here. This is what you call the problem statement. And the problem is, legacy soft, let's call it apps. Legacy apps, actually apps and services, but we'll just be simplistic. Legacy apps are stalling software releases, and therefore business innovation and growth. Man, we have someone else coming here. Too much stuff coming here. Not really. It's actually really nice to have people bring you things. And then you also have, so let me copy this in here. I use Bear for this stuff. And, I try every now and then to go use something else, but I just keep coming back to this, like that Tom Petty song. It's good stuff. All right, I'm gonna put a period there. So here, what I want to use is 70%. They're too invested in. So we'll put this here, and then that's a good lead in. So see, what I'm putting together is like a little bit of a script. So when would I use a transformer? It applies to VM or VMC based environment. Yeah. So this is important. It's got to run in those things, which, pretty common that you would have that stuff. So let's put this here. And that's a good thing to note. So if you're running it in the VMware world, how does it work? Yeah, we already went over that. It scans all the stuff and it uses vRealize. And does an analysis. We kind of looked at some of those screenshots. Yep, there you go, value props, as I was saying. And then, so if you've got any of the, the top two, the basic ones, who have purchased the App Navigator, yep, that makes sense. Let's see. So this is another thing. You might already have this available to you if you're using a Tanzu Kubernetes distro. Not bistro. Advanced. The App Navigator and some other options. All right. VMware Cloud I need is because limited access. Okay, whatever. Some other options. What is the difference? So the action is a tool that customers. So this is a transformer. We recommend customers engage with App Navigator. So the App Navigator is people. It's meat sacks doing stuff, and the transformer is a tool. So you probably would use them kind of similarly together. All right, see, look. And then you can get someone to call you up, talk with you about stuff. Okay. So I think that's pretty good. So essentially, what we have with the app transformer, I mean, it's pretty easy. You basically have a tool that you can use if you're running in vSphere or VMC, and it'll go through and scan, discover what's in VMs, extract out the type of application with signatures. And I unfortunately don't have a publicly available list of what all those applications are, but there are many fine things in there. And then it sticks them in containers and generates the configuration you need for Kubernetes so that you can deploy it. And modernizing stuff is a big deal. And I think what one of the things that's especially valuable with it is being able to go in and weight things by the business value they have, not only the technical value, which is just Jim Dandy. So I think what I'll do is maybe I'll try to do a little short video going over that to kind of pitch it as an idea. Discover. Let's see what we got here. That's pretty good. That's not too bad. You know, I think what I want to do is, instead of doing it in a streaming thing here, is basically put it together as more of a standalone thing. I think that's better for the short videos than me like sitting in a chair here. Me sitting in a chair, I don't know about you, but I find it kind of boring. So let's do the next thing I wanted to do is the app navigator. Now for this, I thought what we would do, I want to test this out. I've only done this a few times, but I thought we would watch, let me bring this up so you can see. I thought we would watch a presentation together. I kind of watched this, but then I ended up getting distracted. Did a lot of other things. From Martin Clarkson up there in the UK, one of my colleagues. And he presented at the UK VMUG, going over what the app navigator is. So let me turn down the music a little bit, because that's going to be kind of distracting with this. And what we'll do, I'm going to have to test to make sure that this is working correctly. But let's watch this, and I'm going to take notes on it. I think I already have taken a lot of notes on this. A lot. Let me see where... Gingerbread events. Yeah, maybe I haven't taken notes on this. I'm just looking through my bear list here. Bear list. Yeah, okay. So I haven't really taken notes on that. So we can start some notes down here. So this, let me put a link to this in here. So this is, like I said, from last week's UK VMUG, the VMware user group. So we're about... We're going to co-watch this video now while I take notes. Thrilling. I'm writing this as a chat thing here. Okay. So I actually went and downloaded this video with one of my favorite applications called Downy. Not to be confused with the fabric softener. Let's close this up, which I think is just great for this kind of thing, because you have to log into a site, and here now I can just play it for everyone here and myself, and then you can like put it on VLC on your iPad. Just a lot of good stuff that you can do with it. Now I'm gonna have a little bit of overlap here, but let's start.
You ready? Are we waiting, or are we going?
Yep.
Sorry?
Typical way to start a conference.
Cool. All right.
I'll start fast forwarding here, but
so afternoon. My name is Martin Clarkson.
I want to make sure that I
solution
can hear the
lead for
sound.
A service in VMware called VMware App Navigator. And I'm going to hopefully try and explain to you guys over the next 45 minutes what app navigation is and why it's important. It's a relatively new concept, I guess, as far as VMware
so that does
is
work.
concerned, but I'll try and do my best to kind of demystify. So first thing I'm going to do is just very briefly introduce myself. This is the first time I've presented at a VMware user
So
group.
I want to try to, I asked to have him on.
So
We'll let him introduce
just kind of
himself
very
then. Let's skip forward a little bit.
It's a truly driven by the fact that from an application perspective, we didn't, certainly in IT, and
All right.
changed my opinion, I guess, in terms of getting consolidation and P2V migrations and all that kind of good stuff. But a lot of that success was largely driven by the fact that from an application perspective, we didn't really change anything. We didn't really touch an application that was running in a virtual machine. We picked it up of a physical box. We moved it to a VM, which was fantastic. But that change, that little change, if you like, is what drove the success there. When I moved across and started dealing with a lot of customers who were using AWS, they were seeing a huge amount of success in terms of how they were deploying applications in AWS, but they were doing pretty much all of it brand new, net new, kind of building from the ground up, building in a particular way, that was very, very suited to AWS. And again, they were seeing huge amounts of success in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of fast forward to today, we find ourselves in this situation where actually, if we are to be successful in this next wave of technology modernization as it goes through, we've got a monumental
Is there a way to
task
zoom
on our
in
hands, 'cause
here?
now we've actually got to start looking at the applications
No.
and thinking about how
That's
we
weird.
change them, how we change them to be more suited to run on a variety of different platforms, whether that's
Oh, I see.
containers or platform services or a number of different bits and pieces. And that kind of leads us to this, I tried to
Let's
find
go
a
back
quote
and
that was
see
a
what
Gartner
his.
variety of different platforms.
Let's try to read this. Let me see if I can expand this out more. No. That's a bummer. Well, here. We'll do this. That'll be a little bit bigger. So he says virtualization, drive consolidation. Yeah, where you just kind of lift and shift, as they say. Public cloud adoption was successful. Right. So when you don't have to migrate stuff, it works out well because you don't have to migrate it, which is a good point. But, it's overall the momentum of things that I think he's obviously going over. Look at this. It cuts off my head if I kneel in too far. That's pretty thrilling. All right. So then we have today's challenges. Yep. So basically, we need to modernize things.
Forms, whether that's kind of containers or platform services, 40 years, mainframe applications that everyone wants to get rid of and no one.
Oh, this is funny.
Gartner quote or an IDC.
Where's his little joke?
We changed them to be more suited to run on a variety of different platforms, whether that's kind of containers or platform services or a number of different bits and pieces. And that kind of leads us to this, I tried to find a quote that was a Gartner quote or an IDC quote.
There we
But I
go.
just thought, you know what, I'll write one myself, right?
Ah, there we go. Source me.
This kind of archaeology.
So this is where I
of
should
applications.
pass on the thing that I like to use. Here we go. Right. So there's all sorts of. This is actually in a. Let me open this up and I'll put a quote. A link in here. This is from. I think it's a study that we did. Let's see. Quotes and figures on legacy. I'm putting a chat in here, holding people back from here. Let me do it as myself, though. That's nice for people to actually be doing some chatting there. That's great. I suppose I should be interactive and things like that. But, not. All right, let's go back.
When we talk to customers, we really, really find that some applications go back 20, 30, 40 years, mainframe applications that everyone wants to get rid of and no one's ever tackled. But if we're going to be truly successful in this kind of next wave of technology, we're going to have to start tackling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you saw this slide from Joe this morning. I particularly like this slide as someone who's been involved with VMware since, I guess, somewhere in between chapter 1 and chapter 2, kind of all the way through that. You put all those things together is kind of why I decided that the time was now for me to come join VMware. Because
Wow.
if we are going to be
That's
successful and
fantastic.
be that multi-cloud apps leader, if you like,
So what he's
we've
going
got to
over
start
here
helping
is
customers understand how they
kind of
transform those applications.
a three-horizon
And that's the
explanation
role
of like
I
VMware's
now
history
have
of stuff.
at VMware.
There
I
we
work
go.
in a small team of individuals whose job it is, as the slide kind of says really, is to try and help customers
There we go.
find applications that are important and unblock problems that are
So-
preventing them from modernizing those applications. And we do that in a variety of ways, right the way from, a 3-4 hour workshop and stuff that we can run with a customer that just allows us to get some insight into their portfolio, through to the, I guess, larger accelerate and scale type activities. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk through some of the methodology that we use in our navigation.
All right, now let's
stage.
pause here
And-
so we can look at this. So we have basically, this is kind of an overview of what it is. Explore, navigate, accelerate. Right. So I think one of the key things here is that you can see it's, I should have this on my iPad where I can, whatever. You have 2 to 3 weeks engagement. And then, so basically you're looking at like, you got like 6 weeks of the work. Let's tack on like a week on each end. We'll just round up to like 10 to like actually have delivered something. Now, Never mind the procurement cycle and all of that kind of stuff. That's a whole other thing to plan for, which is thrilling. But it's the basic thing of like finding out what you have, and this is our app modernization practice and the tools we use in Tanzu Labs that we've been doing for a long time. But you find out what you have, you essentially figure out like what's a value for you, rank it, and kind of sort out what your plan is going to be, and then you move on to doing a lot more of it, and you scale kind of on your own. The typical like starting slow. I realize I kind of just said a bunch of nonsense, not nonsense, but vague things there. But it's very typical starting, doing analysis, ordering how you're going to do something, and starting slow and learning from it. So let's go on.
The reason I'm trying to talk through some of this stuff is not, particularly because I want you guys to come do all this stuff with VMware, but I think there's some really interesting nuggets that kind of come from the way that we do this that I think other organizations can really benefit from doing themselves, or kind of leveraging some of our experience. The other thing that's kind of really important, and again, part of Joe's keynote this morning, he talked about the Pivotal acquisition, the ping pong in and out that Pivotal's had with VMware. When Pivotal rejoined VMware last year, there was a huge chunk of people inside of Pivotal in an organization called Pivotal Labs, now called Tanzu Labs. And those guys have 20 years plus experience in how you build a modern application. And we do go out and help customers transform those applications. And it's that experience, if you like, that we are leaning on to be able to deliver this service.
Yep. All right, let's see what happens next.
Hopefully everybody's seen something like this before, 5 hours, 6 hours.
So we were going over this earlier. This is the VMware sort of framing for modernization stuff, right? And we'll see what his explanation of it is.
7 hours. Everybody wants to add an R depending on the way that they kind of work, right? But this disposition activity, if you like, is fairly well understood in the market. And, to spend 2 minutes on this slide, the typical thought process is, as from the left-hand side of the slide, what you're going to be doing is quite simple in terms of change, retiring things, moving things to SaaS services, maybe not changing things at all. And on the right-hand side, that change is a lot greater because you're maybe refactoring, rewriting, starting again with applications. And in theory, the value goes up with the level of complexity and the level of effort that you're putting into doing that.
Right.
And there are a lot of organizations out there.
This is like a general part of our VMware Tanzu modernization thinking. We'll skip over it for now.
And really, we like to think in a way that says,
we better stay with the differentiated stuff. Let's see how we do it.
The reality of that bucketed list when we start to do the modernization is often very different. So how could you do this differently? And these values are actually values that come from our labs team. And really, we like to think in a way that says, you should plan enough just to start. How much do you need to plan to be able to actually make a start on that modernization activity? And then how do you learn from that first round of modernization activity to then influence and kind of change the way that you do the rest of the application portfolio? How do you make sure that you are building that capability by pairing and doing things, if you like, as you go through that process?
So plan just enough.
And these kind of principles really fundamentally change the way that we serve.
So there's the automate where you use the app transformer, right? Now let's go back.
So to get into some detail, the first thing we do is build a funnel, right? And that might sound like a fairly straightforward thing to think about. You need some form of decisioning tree. That means you can put an application in the top, go through a bunch of decisions and questions along the way, and at the bottom of it, you have some kind of indication of what you're going to do with the application. And we typically look at 3 things. Technical and business factors, I am going to go into a little bit more detail in as I go through, but in theory, the technical factors are really all based around what does the application look like today? What are the things that means that this is going to be easier or more complex to modernize in some way, shape, or form? What kind of framework are you using? What kind of how's the application built?
So again, this is like a consultative
and stuff. Has it got on other systems and whatnot in your environment? All the things that kind of drive the level of complexity involved in modernizing that application.
So these are like the technical
then you have
things.
The business factors. how important is
technical
this
things.
application to your business?
These are like
Is it
the
something that
scoring that you give to things
better
and analysis
you could
that you
earn
go
more money
through,
from?
essentially.
Is it something if you could do better, you could reduce risk in some way, shape, or form? Is it something actually that's costing?
And I think, one of the key points here to pick up on is that it's not just the technical side of like how and can we in discovering the stuff that you want to modernize, but because modernization is such like a big, expensive, sometimes risky thing, right? Like, I mean, it's a complicated problem. You want to have some way of filtering and ordering stuff and to make sure that you're doing the best thing. And in this case, the way of a very important weight, if you will, a way to analyze this is what does it get me business wise? Like, and I think this is a lot of why people haven't modernized stuff and why they get stuck in a legacy trap is either they haven't looked at it from a business perspective, right? So it's not apparent to them the urgency to modernize something, or maybe they have looked at it from a business perspective and in fact, there's no business value to modernizing it, right? And this could be true or not, depending on like, if you think your software is kind of rotting and cutting down your optionality, your ability to evolve it in the future. But it's good to always have that metric anyhow. So let's see what
a lot of
happens
money
next.
today to run because it falls over all the time and it takes a lot of kind of operational activity to kind of keep it going. And then the third factor, which isn't often kind of considered in this type of exercise, is actually all about your organization. If you go down this modernization path, do you have the knowledge and understanding in your organization to actually be able to follow that through?
Let's
and that
make note of
isn't
that.
necessarily about the technology
types
that
of
you've got in place
scores.
today. It quite often is more about that domain level expertise, i.e. what does this application actually do for the business? If I stood up at a whiteboard and said, how does this application actually flow through the things that it does? Do you have domain level experts that can kind of help you understand that? So, the technical side. We have a tool. It's an open source tool. You can go on GitHub and download it and play around with it for yourself. It's a tool that we've developed over a number of years, and effectively, what we've tried to do is put a lot of our experience into that tool. There are 3,000 odd rules that sit within this tool. That means you can scan code for your applications, and when you scan that code, we can tell you the things that we think are going to make this complex to modernize. Now that could be something as simple
Let's go look
as
this up.
there's a hard-coded IP address in a line of code, and actually, when we find that stuff, we flag it as kind of medium complexity,
Not
because
GitHub.
actually, if all you have is just hard-coded IP addresses, you can go back in the code,
There we go.
get rid of the IP addresses, put them in a configuration file or something somewhere, and you fix it, right? But actually, we also look for things
I'll
like,
put a link
are
to
you
that here in
using a
the chat.
particular component of a Java framework that is
Thing.
no longer relevant or modern in this kind of current world? And therefore, if you was to modernize this application, you would probably have to rewrite that part of the application. But the tool itself is really quite simple. You download it, you put your code in a folder or a repository, you run the tool against the code, and the tool will come back and give you a complexity score from 0 to 10, 10 being less complex, 0 being really complex. And the way we use it is we use it to kind of identify and feed into that funnel process. So is this thing going to be difficult or not, and a kind of first pass?
I bet the
And we do
The
a lot of
modernizer that we
maintenance of
talked
that.
about.
Like I said, it's open source, so people out in the world
Probably-
are kind of contributing to rules and stuff as we go through.
I wonder if it works uses this.
And I've had a couple of customers already that have run the tool against some of their code. They get a score, 4 or 5, whatever happens to be. And then obviously we can
I'm
also
looking at
help
the
you in
the
terms
manual
of
here.
understanding why
Yeah.
that score is that score. And normally it's,
Ooh.
some fairly straightforward things that you can kind of pick out.
So this is
but if
actually
need that
something you
help
could
in
go
kind of
use
explaining, then of course
To
we
do a lot of the modernization
Um,
right now.
So once we've got that technical complexity,
That's fun.
then we need to think about the business complexity.
All right, let's go
and
back
this
over
is
here.
something that changes quite a lot from customer to customer. But the sort of things we're looking for are what if we modernize this application, could we increase the value? Could we reduce the risk? Could we reduce the
What's
cost?
this guy doing on
of-
his
of
iPad down
delivering
here?
this
Looks like he's checking
application?
some email.
And actually, you know, normally this is the sort of thing that you end up doing
got to
on a
keep
kind
up
of
with things.
interview basis. Interestingly, sometimes the code analysis is something that some people do on a kind of interview basis.
Scoring.
But what we find is that there's often a lot of indicators that you can go out there and look for that say, how critical is this, is this application? Even as far as saying, how many times a week do you get called out at 2 o'clock in the morning when this application is down, is normally a good indication that somehow this is critical to your business. But also you can look at things like ServiceNow and how many tickets have been raised, or go and have a look at the kind of Git repository and how many changes are made to the code, stuff like that, that you can typically kind of understand the business criticality of the application. And then what we get to is something that looks like this, right? We call this a 2x2. I guess that's what it is, because it's a kind of, a rectangle.
That's what everyone calls it.
To make sense of this graph, along the kind of x-axis,
So let's see.
you've got the business impact.
So they've run the analyzer, that open source thing. What was it called? Let's go back and look. The Cloud Suitability Analyzer, which I think, I'm guessing is part of the Tanzu application transformer, the productized version of it. But it's an OSS thing that you can use. And then that goes and analyzes all the stuff that you have, or discovering it. Then it puts together this report that we're seeing that is essentially, in the, as he says, 2x2, it's helping you figure out the ordering of applications to modernize, right? And I assume there's some other intervention there, but it's giving you some data analysis of what to modernize instead of just relying on a room full of people to, kind of whiteboard it out and figure things out. So that's a good start, especially if you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of applications. All right, let's join back in.
The further to the right, the greater the business impact if you was to modernize this application. And then on the y-axis, you've got the technical feasibility, which means as you get towards the top of the graph, these things are easier to modernize. And the way that we like to look at this is that top right-hand quadrant, if you like, is normally the place to start. These are the applications that have a high business impact to your organization, and in theory have a low complexity to modernize.
Right.
And go back
Low
to what
hanging
we
and
said
mid
at
fruit.
the beginning about our principles of, start learning just enough to start, and then doing
Now that, if you look across Tanzu Labs, the former Pivotal Labs, formerly named Pivotal Labs, if you look across Tanzu Labs things, that is pretty much the way that things are selected. Is always having one axis. Let me see what I can't read because of the whatever, but this looks like business. So you have one axis here, the x-axis. I was never good at math, especially geometry and that kind of stuff. I think I know what a trapezoid is. I'm not sure if that's geometry though. Anyways, on the x-axis here, you have business value, right? So the higher, the more valuable it is to the business. Now, there might also be, I guess it's the business criticality is what that, and it could also be like aligning to your strategic goals, right? So just to make one up, if I was a clothes manufacturer, and in the next year I wanted to allow for like on demand sort of like printing of something on a shirt, if someone could upload a name or a photo and have it printed on a shirt, that's a lot of software involved in that whole tool chain. And so that would be an extremely high priority, a very high business thing to modernize whatever is needed for that, because it's something that we want to deliver. Kind of a weird example. And then on the other one, you have y-axis. You're measuring the technical feasibility. Like, is it easy to modernize? Would it be very difficult? Do we even have people who know how to program in this thing and program the other thing? Well, I don't know what analysis this is, but it's interesting that technical wise, everything clusters. This is like an answer a programmer gives, average. They never want to commit to very much. So you can see that most of it is just like difficult. I guess also if you've automated this analysis, that could be kind of good. That like, people have done averagely well when it comes to following best practices and things. And then you have other stuff here that is a little easier to change around. So you come up with that analysis, and that allows you to order, prioritize, plan for, put together your strategy in a project management sense of what you're going to do. Let's jump back in.
from those experiences. What we believe is that if you start there, what you'll do is you'll help your teams and your business start to learn the lessons of modernization. You know, the business will start to see value as you modernize them, hopefully, if you pick the right ones.
Right.
But also your teams that are doing that modernization
This is another thing
effort will
is
learn a lot through going through that process
See.
as they start to
part of
you
the
know,
process
attack
is
particular application
learning
types,
how
they
to
build
do this.
recipes, they build patterns that could
Also
be
what
used
works in
potentially
your
for the
org.
future. And then
Learning by
as
doing.
you kind of walk around that, you
Doing
say,
it
quadrant
slowly
2,
at
that
first.
bottom right-hand quadrant.
as you learn.
Well, this is something that you probably get to at a later date when your teams have got more experience in terms of how they modernize those applications.
See, that's a good point.
Because they are the ones that are going to be more difficult, but actually still give the business
I like that. So,
a
like,
lot
you know,
of value. If you
there
do
are
something.
in the bottom right. So over here, there are things that are valuable for the business because you remember the x-axis is business value, but they're more difficult technically. So you know to do those next once your team has gotten itself trained up, which I think that's a great point there. So part of this is skills transformation. So stuff in the lower right quadrant, high business value, but technically difficult. You wait to do in the second, third batch. Once your people have learned how to do all of this, and management has made needed org changes, etc. You're better prepared to do the tough work. As Andrew Clayshafer once said at like an executive thing, I think it was at Austin, at kind of like our executive half-day conference during Spring One. If you want to learn to surf, make sure you know how to swim first. Otherwise, things are a little more dangerous.
Top left, maybe you use these as test cases. They're quite easy to do. They don't have a huge amount of business impact if you got them wrong, right? And then the bottom left-hand corner is probably almost certainly the area that you just say, that's something that we're going to retire, or we're just going to go find a SaaS product or something to replace it, because they are really complex, and actually the business probably wouldn't see any value from you doing the modernization at all. And this kind of output, if you like, and this is kind of the thing here is this, we find this kind of output is not only actually quite easy to establish, and it is pretty straightforward to establish, but actually it's incredibly valuable in finding that first wave of applications that really matter, and that you can start to build up that muscle memory, if you like, inside your organization in terms of how you modernize those applications. And it's a different conversation, right? It's a different discussion than we're used to having, I guess. Go back to my earlier point, I think the first waves of virtualization were really all about how could you not touch the application. And again, we find things like the output from CSA is a really good way of being able to start that conversation with the application team. I think we've all got that application team who are always too busy to talk to you, don't really see the point in modernization. If you can get access to their code repository, run CSA against it, get a score, get some key things that you could go talk to them about and go start that conversation.
This is an interesting point worth noting. I'm going to put a tag in here for the book, because these are some things I don't necessarily have thought of, but so skills transformation. See, also CSA scan gives you some concrete things to talk about the app teams, people who own the app scanned. You can start knowing stuff about the app instead of waiting for them to tell you. This also means you don't have to interrupt them and break their flow. Right, so it's harder for them to use the excuse, we're too busy shipping software and features to worry about modernization. Yeah. What is the too busy working to invent the wheel? There's a funny cartoon here where, oh, there we go. It's hard to find what the source of this is, but you know. Haha. Pretty good one. Let's see if we get a, I remember I tried to hunt this down once. I don't really know what the source is. It's lost to time. What's this guy saying? Sorry, I'm too busy. Yeah, someone just redid it on their own, which is kind of, whoa, what happened here? Which is kind of what you need to do. Let's see. Yeah, let's go back to the original one. Just go ahead and take this one. Copy image. Put that in there for fun. Okay. Let's go back.
Customer a couple of weeks ago sent me a CSA output, and I think we scanned something like 7.5 million lines of code, and in that 7.5 million lines of code, we found 4,000 instances of hard-coded IP addresses. I can tell you back in the day when I was sat at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to P2V a machine that had a hard-coded IP address or a dependency on a MAC address or something like that, I would have killed for that information, right? To be able to go to say to the application guy, it's you that's causing me this problem. But it's just about opening up that insight and kind of trying to drive that conversation.
Yeah.
And for us, yeah, we're starting to now think about how we make a bigger application portfolio easier to understand, because most enterprise organizations have got applications in the hundreds, not in the tens or 20s. And if you think about the process that we've just talked about, it's nice that you pick those applications in the top right-hand corner that are really, really easy to do. But actually, if you're going to end up doing the whole lot, how do you look for ways to accelerate that? So we've started to experiment with this idea of archetypes, which effectively are applications that have a similar construction. And the idea being, if you start to address some of the applications that are in that archetype, in theory, you build recipes and reusable patterns. That means you can use it on other applications that have a similar archetype as you go forward. So what do I mean by archetype? Well, I guess firstly, you've got this idea that you have applications that are similar. And you can see on the kind of left-hand drawing, that is exactly what we see here.
Right. So what's going on here is you're trying to identify a way of finding similarity between applications so you can pretty quickly apply the same modernization things. Like, you know, whether it's a 3-tier application or like, you know, I don't know the terminology, but I bet there's also a lot of applications in the job world that are based on the Java Pet Store or, you know, the Spring Pet Store, the Spring Music Store, or whatever, that are grown directly from that, and also other examples there. But, you know, there's a lot of common patterns that you follow. And so if you can find out a way to kind of like find those archetypes, then again, you can automate your modernization a lot more.
There's applications that are similar, that share a lot of the same components and that kind of stuff as they do it. But on the right-hand side, actually what you see, which is slightly more powerful, is actually when you look at those applications at some level of detail, you find that a lot of them are using a single kind of common component. In this situation, it's a file system dependency. And you know, I know that these diagrams look a lot like network communications and stuff like that, which again is something I think we've looked at over the years as this thing's talking to that thing on that port and this kind of stuff. But this is actually looking at the code and saying this, all of this code references this single module that we've built for a file system to access a file system. And actually, in this situation, if you started to address that file system dependency and modernize it, 9 times out of 10, you can unblock all the other stuff that sits behind it. And then if I go back to that 2x2 that I talked about earlier, What we are effectively trying to do is go, if all those things that I've kind of badly circled, if you like, or not circled or squiggled, if you like, in an archetype, if all those blobs there are applications that have the same archetype, we could think about doing something in the top left quadrant that is easy and has a low business impact, but actually is going to help us build some of those recipes and patterns. That means we can take some of the stuff that's really difficult and start to shift it up. And actually now we can start saying this is going to be a little bit easier. And again, that goes back to the principles that we talked about earlier, which is how do we start and learn from what
Let me
we're
make a
doing?
note
How do
for
we build
the
those patterns?
write-up.
And all of this stuff is about building that muscle
Legacy
memory,
trap.
because none of this stuff is easy.
Write-up.
But I think, in terms of the long-term
Use
success
cluster
of modern
diagrams.
platforms, whatever they happen to be, clouds, containers, platform services, etc., unless we start to address some of these application challenges, I think we're going to be stuck in this place for a long time. And that's really what our team is all about, and that methodology is all about. So a couple of other things to share with you. I'm not going to do this one to death today, but maybe if I get invited back another time, we can kind of deep dive in it. This is really just to...
So this is like the heart of the Tanzu Labs modernization practice. There's this is a lot of what Mark and I want to write up in our Legacy Trap book. But what he went over is just part of this, and then there's this is a pretty detailed, rigorous thing of going through finding the applications, and then with each application discovering, using an event stream analysis to kind of like rediscover the architecture, but also the business process that the application is using and all the things that depend on it. And then use that to, systematically go through and modernize things. Let's see how he summarizes it.
You guys that we have a methodology. So once you've identified those applications, we have good experience and good practice at how you take one and start to break it down and start that process of modernization. This is something called Swift or Swift method that our labs teams use. But again, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail because it's a whole session on its own, but it's just there to say, if you want to understand it, there's lots of information. I've got a good handy resource, if you like, in the next couple of slides that we can use to kind of, you can go and
like
look
a
at a
handy
lot of this
resource.
stuff. But the process of taking that big monolithic application and break it down is something that we can certainly help you with, and shouldn't be something that you kind of avoid, I guess, really, because it is absolutely doable.
Don't avoid it.
We're also working on some productization of this stuff.
Oh, here's the
For
app
those of you
transformer.
who've got keen eye on VMworld, you would have seen us talk about a product called App Transformer. It is available in some form of tech preview. If you don't know if you can have it, by all means, kind of find me afterwards and I'll work out with you whether you can have it or not, or what kind of eligibility and stuff it is. But effectively, App Transformer is the beginnings of us starting to think about how do we take some of the things I've talked about today and actually start to put it into a product. How can we automatically discover all of that?
Yeah, and again, I'm
dependency
guessing a
type
lot of
information and application type information.
What he calls the CSA.
How can we then start
The
to
open
apply
source
some
thing is in
business
there as
logic
well.
to it so that we can help you with the prioritization? And then hopefully at some point, how could we start to automate some of the modernization activities and actually give you that click button that says, I found the high priority, it just needs containerizing. I can press a button and it will be containerized. So that's available, it's out there. We can certainly kind of do demos and stuff of it today. Like I say, it's in certain levels of preview and stuff like that. But that's really about how we productize what I've just talked to you about. And then, my last slide really is just kind of go explore. It's got a ton of stuff. You can see that right-hand side is a break. All I had to share with you today. If you want that link or that QR code, it takes you to the landing page for our Navigator services. There's a whole bunch of information on there.
I was hoping it'd go to the
Cloud
slides.
Suitability Analyzer and all of that kind of stuff.
But let's look up, do I have a browser? Let's look up his Twitter thing. This is always a fun thing to do. So it's just Martin Clarkson. Okay. Martin Clarkson. Let's see what's going on Mark Clarkson's Twitter. What's he doing here? Oh, looks delicious. All right. What is this? Oh, maybe I should submit to that. I am going to save this over in my daily log of things to do. CFP to this. Debug. Sorry, I'm just writing a to-do note for myself. All right, let's go back. What else we got there? Screenshot of a screenshot. Little weird there, but that's fine. All right. Although I guess that's actually kind of an interesting way to quickly edit something to fit into the narrow thing there. Uh-huh. Yeah, there's that quote by himself. That's fun. Oh, who is the guy who, is this the guy who is sitting right there? That's fun. Maybe a little creepy. Whatever. All right, so some great analysis. Uh-huh. Anyways, so there's his Twitter account. I'll put that here in the chat window. It's Twitter. And also in my my notes on this. All right. Let's see if he's got anything else to say.
Blog posts and videos and all of those sort of bits and pieces. So yeah, you're more than welcome to kind of go, look, any questions?
Anyone have questions? Anyone have questions?
When you talk about ingesting the code, do you point it at like a Git repository, or do you provide files? Does it take on any language? Or
Yeah, so you can do it from a Git repository or just a folder of kind of code that you put together. It really is
So I think someone asked what it's scanning. Is it a Git repo that you're scanning or other things? And let's take a look.
that kind of the code, and what we do is we scan the code, and the first thing we do is we pull out anything that's of any interest, and then we run it against the rule base that says what are we looking for in terms of things that make this more complex. But yeah, I mean, we can run it against code. We can run it against some binaries and stuff as well if you don't have the source code. I think, you know, we've got a couple of incredibly clever people in the team that were I guess the initial contributors towards creating CSA, and they're always up for a challenge, right, in terms of finding a new way of being able to ingest some code. So at the moment, I think, you know, anything Java, anything .NET, in a kind of raw code base is very easy for us to ingest, and we have done, you know, kind of jar files and ear files and all these kind of things from a Java perspective. We've just had to build slightly different ingesters to be able to get the code into it. But yeah, just as long as if you've got access to the source code, that's best. If you haven't, you know, ping me an email or ping me a message or whatever, and we'll have a chat with the team and see if there's a way we can work out how we do it.
Not so bad.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right. So that was fun to watch together. You'll have to leave me a comment or tell me if you like watching things together like that, because I watch a lot of videos, and it's actually kind of nice to do it in a performative way, because it makes me more better. It makes me take notes. So let's close this down. We'll kind of close out here. Now, as always, oh, not that one. You know, if you want to get the archives, you can go to tanzutalk.com, and in the YouTube listing, I'll put links to all the stuff that we looked over. But if you want to get archives, you can go to tanzutalk.com. Now, this will list our podcast here. I really need to go through and fix this up, or whatever. But if you click on videos, you can get you can come down here and actually see the full playlist of videos that we have. there I am right now. But you can see the one that I did last week. There's videos, long and short, all sorts of things that you can look up. So I try to go over the methodology we use and products that we have, all those kind of things. And then finally, you know, if you're watching this, if you want to get notified when we're doing stuff, you know what you can do. You can click on little bells, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff, and give me some feedback, whether you're liking or leaving a comment to tell me if you like this format and if it was helpful. And then finally, you know, if you want to kind of get more information about this, whether it's the transformer or modernizing stuff, you can click on the link we have. It'll be below there. And as you know, you can either email apptransformer@vmware.com, and then let's go to where that talk to an expert thing is. There's a form you can fill out if you go to the first link down there. And let's see, because the first link I'll have to go to the blog post. So I won't actually do that. I'll have the first link go to this and the blog post after it. But you can see there's a talk to an expert, and we'll have someone call y'all up. So with that, thanks for hanging out and watching. This is Tuesday, November 30th. I'll be back on Thursday. I think I have some fancy meetings coming up, and also you know, we're ending our executive roundtable thing this year with some gingerbread tasting. If you're in Germany, Switzerland, what's the other one? Or Austria. You know, if you're people who've been to our events previously, if you haven't gotten an invite for that and you're in our little, you know, our little Tanzu executive roundtable networking group, send me an email or whatever at kotem@vmware.com, or write me on Twitter or whatever, and we'll get an invite to you. There's not that many spaces, but we're always interested in having our friends on there. And with that, you know, I guess what I was saying is, so I might go over like a little speech I'm preparing for that after we taste the gingerbread. But with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.